think that I will be locking in this player in 20 lineups tonight. What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. Hey, NFL Week 5 kicks off tonight with a showdown slate on DraftKings, the single game slate on FanDuel. And we're going to be talking about my favorite plays, and I'm going to tier them 1 through 5 based on my exposure in 20 lineups. You guys know the drill. If you guys are new to this channel, just do me 2 solids, man. 1, hit that subscribe button. 2, hit that thumbs up button. We're going to have hopefully a little bit of fun here, and I hope you guys have been enjoying this time of year. The baseball playoffs are upon us. And NFL Week 5 is here. We're now going into the 5th week of NFL. We have 4 games of sample size to really look at each team, look at strength of schedule, and kind of look at how teams are playing in neutral game scripts and how maybe their approaches and their execution may be differing from what we anticipated going into the season and where we land now. So I really like this part of the season because I'm a man of data, I'm a man of analytics, and now that I have a sample size to work with, I can feel a little bit stronger about some hunches. So let's jump into it. You guys know the deal. Every video brought to you by RunDFS.com. If you guys want access to my spreadsheets, my player pools for every main slate, for not just NFL, but NBA coming up, and I still talk some MLB in the premium Discord. Go to RunDFS.com. They did drop all of the prices since for the next 2 weeks. It's just NFL. We will have baseball spreadsheet up for you guys to cherry pick from, but it's not as intense on my half to provide coverage for it. So instead of the $30 per week price point, it's down to $19.99 and so on and so forth. And if you stay to the end of this video, I'll give you a 20% off coupon code that you guys can go to rundfs.com, drop it in there, get signed up, and join that premium Discord. And then tonight, when we're out there making our showdown slates and player pools, you guys can be part of it. Jumping into the injury report for tonight's game, it's pretty clean from the Rams side. Tight end Tyler Higbee and running back Darrell Henderson were full participants in practice. So if you had any concern about them, that should be long gone. But on the Seahawks side, things get a little bit more murky here. Playing on this short week as it is, wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge listed as out with a concussion, and running back Chris Carson is listed as questionable with a neck injury. He did not practice so far this week, and looking at beat writers and reporters from different areas that cover the Seahawks, and even some coach speak, it sounds very likely that Chris Carson will not play tonight. So from where I'm sitting this far out from the game, I'm going to prepare as if Chris Carson's not going to play, and that makes this slate very different from a lineup construction standpoint, and we'll talk about that going forward in this video. Before we talk about the tiers, let's talk about the game script. Looking at the Vegas totals for this one, we have a 54.5 live game total, and the visiting Los Angeles Rams favorited by 2 and the hook. Now, my personal lean, I kind of think the Rams are kind of poised to be in control of this game, but that's just kind of my personal lean. I do think their defense is pretty strong. I do think the Seahawks offense is pretty banged up, and I also think that the Seahawks offensively have been running a pretty low volume here. So I do think if the Rams can control the pace of play and the time of possession, I like their chances to really stand on Russell Wilson's neck. So that's how I've been reflecting my lineup so far, my player pools that I've carved out, and then also just some of the bets that I've put out there. So if you disagree, if you agree with that, let me know in the comments below. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think how this game goes. We've seen some really fun games in primetime so far, so I'm hoping that we live up to this total. Jumping into the tiers portion of the video, if you guys are new to the channel, what I like to do is I like to rank all of the players I have projected for usage and fantasy points for this game, and I ranked them based on how I anticipate to have exposure to them in my lineups in a 20 lineup approach. If you guys are playing 150, 100 and beyond, you get a little bit more freaky and you start making some Space Jam reaches, but I am approaching this from just 20 lineups, and that's how I will be ranking them. So let's jump into it. Tier number 1, let's start with running back Darrell Henderson. Yeah, Henderson picked up where he left off after a week off, and he saw 90% of snaps last week and 19 touches for 116 yards. The Seahawks are allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs thus far, allowing the most rushing yards in the league and the most receiving yards in the league to opposing running backs, with Henderson profiling as one of the league's true workhorses, and the team implied for 4 touchdowns. It's hard to not see a strong probability for Henderson to be an optimal play as just the 6th highest priced guy on the DraftKings slate. So I expect to have amongst the highest ownership in my personal lines to Darrell Henderson. I don't think he'll be the top. I'll talk about the top guy next, and that's going to be Alex Collins, running back from the other side of the ball, right? And this one has to do with the Chris Carson news that we just talked about. On that reasonable suspicion that Chris Carson does not play this game, I'm going to be liberally taking advantage of the $3,200 price tag of Alex Collins. Collins ran with a purpose against a pretty strong 49ers run defense, where he averaged 4.4 yards per carry on 10 attempts, and he did find the end zone, while Chris Carson had 13 carries for a far less efficient 2.3 yards per carry. The opportunity to shift a lot of that Chris Carson volume to Collins exists at this point, and that's likely going to place a high ownership on Alex Collins as we get closer to lock. But the opportunity, the volume at this price point just cannot be ignored, and it can't be passed up. So I think that I will be locking in this player in 20 lineups tonight if that news drops and it's a full go. Next up, Cooper Kupp, tier 1, usually on a single game slate, 12,400. Is a price point that would make me talk to Jesus, but because Alex Collins perhaps unlocks this slate to play just about whoever we want, I think I'm not going to be as skittish on Cooper Kupp as maybe we would have been, or maybe as DraftKings wanted us to be when they price Kupp at 12.4. So again, it is contingent on the absence of Chris Carson, but so far it's looking very likely that Chris Carson does not play this game, and Cooper Kupp has broken half of the main slates that he has been on. And when you remove the quantity of games on the slate to just one, it stands to reason that Cooper Kupp could be the highest scoring player from this game. And if Collins is going to make him that much easier to access, I'm going to play Cooper Kupp. He has broken the slates that he's been on, mainly due to incredible touchdown variance. Last week, the touchdowns regressed, as did the fantasy points, but the volume of opportunity did not. Despite just 64 yards on 5 receptions, he logged a season-high 13 targets. As Stafford's aerial safety blanket, he might see touchdown variance return in a run-good fashion, because the Seahawks have allowed 6 receiving touchdowns through 4 weeks. Cooper Kupp, if I can get him, I'm going to get him. I project him to be pretty high owned by the field, but like I said, Alex Collins just might be the key. Tier 2, Matthew Stafford, give him to me, quarterback of the Rams. He's poised for a bounce back here against this struggling Seahawks defense that is allowing the 7th most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks and the 4th most passing yards on the season, and an 8-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Stafford has 8 pass attempts inside the 5-yard line this season with an 11-to-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Many incredible handcuffs to him, including the aforementioned Cooper Kupp. On the other side, I do like the Russell Wilson shares. Russell Wilson, I may end up liking Stafford a little bit more than Russell Wilson when it's all said and done. Because like I said, I do think the Rams defense may be better than the field's giving it credit, especially when Sean McVay has prepared for this Seahawks offense a couple of times a year for the last couple of years. And on top of that, the Seahawks offense could be without their starting running back, and with a banged up Tyler Lockett. Russell Wilson has not exceeded 20 DraftKings points against the Rams in their last 4 games. However, the Rams have had a change in defensive coordinator after Brandon Staley went to the Chargers, ushering in Raheem Morris. I don't think that's necessarily a downgrade as we've seen thus far. The Seahawks offense has thus far thrown at a bottom 6 rate in football, averaging just about 27 pass attempts per game and a little over 32 dropbacks per game. A few of those dropbacks then turn into rushing attempts for Russell Wilson. But I tell you what, man, Russ's ability to be hyper efficient fantasy-wise, despite his team running him amongst the least amount of plays per game, is going to keep him at least for now as a tier 2 option for me because his skill set also leaves potential rushing yardage, though not as much as maybe the field or the casual public believes. And he also does have rushing touchdown potential as well. And you compare that skill set versus the average quarterback, I definitely think there's a range of outcomes for Wilson to be a solid play tonight. But I will say, from a strategic standpoint, I'm going to keep an eye on the ownership projections on Russell Wilson. If I'm going to go with my gut here and lean the Rams' way a little bit more, I might back off of Russ if his ownership projection comes in too high. So keep an eye on that. If you guys disagree with that completely, it's very, very reasonable to suggest, hey, if you think the Rams are going to beat Russell Wilson, Wilson's going to have a lot of opportunity in the fourth quarter playing from behind. I think that's a reasonable game script as well. But I'm just kind of leaning towards the Rams being the better side here and Stafford maybe being the better fantasy point producer. Let's move on to the tier 3 area. Robert Woods. He certainly has potential to move up to a tier 2 as the day progresses, especially if I want to get to a little less Russell Wilson. Woods has logged 15 receptions on the year for 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he's being lapped by Cooper Kupp. However, he's still on the field for 90% of snaps, and if coach speak is your thing, Sean McVay greased up the need to get Robert Woods more involved, and we saw that play out kind of favorably when he said similar things about Deshaun Jackson a couple weeks ago. So it definitely would not be going into this slate without a decent chunk of Robert Woods in my back pocket. Moving on to receiver from the Seahawks side, I'm going to lean on DK Metcalf. While teammate Tyler Lockett has dealt with a lingering hip and knee injury, Metcalf has seen 8 or more targets in the last 3 weeks, and he's found the end zone 3 times on the season overall. He's a freak of nature, and while he's short a dance with Jalen Ramsey here and there, the Rams have not stuck Ramsey in a shadow role as of yet this season, and we've actually seen Jalen Ramsey run over half of his defensive assignments out of the slot, while Metcalf has lined up less than a fourth of his routes out of the slot. So a little less overlap between him and Jalen Ramsey, if that's something that would push you away from a receiver. Parlaying that with Tyler Lockett battling those hip and knee ailments, Metcalf feels like the safer of the 2 Seattle wide receivers. And Metcalf's also responsible for 45% of the team's total air yards. So definitely like Metcalf over Lockett. But as of now, I'm going to have Lockett also in the tier 3 exposure-wise, but the seesaw will definitely lean towards Metcalf ownership. But I will say, if you've run the numbers historically, it definitely feels like Metcalf and Lockett rarely coexist from a big fantasy point game. So one of the things I might think about, and it's potentially just a giant coincidence and maybe a statistical anomaly, but one of the things I might think about is decreasing the overlap between the two. Even if Russell Wilson is the captain, I might set a rule to if Metcalf in lineup less likely to use Lockett and vice versa. I don't know if I fully yanked that, but it is something I'm thinking about because, man, oh man, has it been quite the historical coincidence, if nothing else, that Metcalf and Lockett don't tend to have ceiling games together. We'll see if that changes here. So I'm going to have Lockett in the tier 3 category as well, but in a 1v1, I will be leaning towards Metcalf. If nothing else, then I feel like he is the healthier option as of now, and less snaps against Jalen Ramsey is not a bad thing. Let's move on to the tier 4 category. Let's bring up Van Jefferson. The Los Angeles Rams, despite running a lower amount of routes than Robert Woods, Van Jefferson is matching Robert Woods in opportunities with 6 targets in each of his last 2 games. He also has 2 touchdowns on the season. He's a fringe play week to week, but he has obvious utility here at 4,800. If he lands double-digit fantasy points like he's done in half of his games so far, he'll probably be a viable option in your showdown lineup. So Van Jefferson, tier 4 exposure for me. Next up, Tyler Higbee, tight end from the Rams. Another pass catcher there for Matthew Stafford. He's somewhat of an uncomfortable click at 5,600. Usually going to give you a modest output fantasy scoring-wise, despite 5 or more targets in 3 of his games so far and a touchdown. He did miss a touchdown last week, but I'm going to have some of them tier 4 levels. Not going to get too crazy with it. We've seen tight ends kind of break slate so far. So give me some Higbee. He's going to run a ton of routes to make him at least viable. I'm going to run that back with the tight end from the Seahawks, Gerald Everett revenge game. If you're into that, Everett's coming off the COVID IL. He was asymptomatic, and he could be the freshest legs on the Seahawks offense, especially with the aforementioned ailments of Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson. The Rams defense has funneled 38 targets against it through 4 weeks, allowing a 68% catch rate and over 300 yards receiving. Everett muscled a 5-for-5 game in his last outing against the Minnesota Vikings. We'd need him to outscore the kickers, right? But I do think a Russell Wilson to Gerald Everett handcuff might be pretty viable. And, kind of touching on my maybe don't have a lot of overlap between Metcalf and Lockett. Maybe I do Wilson, one of Metcalf, Lockett, and Gerald Everett as a grouping that I approach in 20 lineups. So I might promote Everett to a higher tier as we go. I'm also going to put Deshaun Jackson here in this tier 4 spot, and I'm going to have really low exposure to him. He's a volatile player, right? But he does have fringe slate breaking ability because one pass is all it takes for him to break off a 70-yard touchdown. High volatility, high upside. I don't want none of them, but because of the risk, I'm not going to go too crazy with it. So tier 4 right now, with him likely being my lowest exposed of all of the tier 4 guys. And then lastly, at the bottom of the barrel here, I think that's where I'm going to put the Seahawks defense for sure. Freddie Swain probably. The kickers here, I'm kind of meditating on what to do with these two, because I do think this game being within a field goal spread from where we're standing now, with this being a division rivalry game, there's a chance at 3 or 4 field goal attempts here, and these kickers could get double-digit fantasy points, but they're not super cheap, and I just don't love playing kickers as it is. So I think I'm gonna start them at tier 5, but I do think as the day goes on, if I start crunching these lineups and I'm feeling a little bit awkward, I might at least put them as a tier 4. So kind of put them at tier 4.5 for now, right? We'll also put Shoney Michel, Will Dissly, and then Rams defense. I'm on the edge here. I feel like if I'm at home, I'm a little bit more likely to get to some Rams defense. But for now, we'll put them at tier 5. Hey, the process says we got 50 plus points to be scored here. We got Russell Wilson, even if you think that his hill to climb is a little bit bigger than maybe the spread. It is a tough matchup. So I don't think I'm going to go too crazy with the defense against Russell Wilson in prime time. And then we'll leave Chris Carson down there at the bottom because I got a hunch that he doesn't play. So that's what I got on this slate. Let me know where you guys agree. Let me know where you disagree in the comments below. I'll be responding to as many comments as I possibly can. And if you're on Twitter, twitter.com/Gundacker, reach out to me. I said I'd give you a 20% off coupon code at rundfs.com, and I'm a man of my word. Use coupon code Kupp, as in Cooper Kupp. So get 20% off any VIP membership today only. So go check that out. And then get in that RunDFS.com premium Discord. Tag me, say, yo, Gun, I'm here. What's up? Talk to me. And then we'll try to get in that pre-locked voice chat, making some player pools, making some lineups with the boys. Should be a laid-back Cadillac Jack type of Thursday, man. I appreciate you guys, as always, making part of my time be part of your time. I love you guys. I hope you crush it. Good luck. God bless. And go win some money.